Welcome to the Legal Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jolene, and with the Legal Learning Center, I help prospective law students save $300,000 on law school. To receive 3 money saving strategies today, visit legallearningcenter.com/money. Today, we are joined by Ashley Hill. Ashley helps students get scholarships.
Awesome. So first of all, Jolie, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm excited. I love talking about this. Thank you for the invitation. And so hello to everyone. Like Jolene said, my name is Ashley Hill. I am a scholarship search strategist, and that's just fancy talk for I love to assist incoming and current graduate and professional students in learning how to leverage other people's money in order to graduate from their program without going into tons of student loan debt.
This is such an exciting topic for me because I never really understood this when I was in college. I didn't even understand it was a thing for law school. I've heard the
Mhm.
same thing from several others that they didn't realize third-party scholarships were a thing for law school. So, a lot of us have graduated with a lot more debt than I think we needed to.
Mhm.
So, okay, how do you help students graduate with less debt? How do you find the scholarships for them?
Sure. So I'll give a little background. Is I actually came from corporate America, spent almost 10 years there, and I was a researcher. I knew when I went to college, I was a biology major, and I knew I wanted to do research in some capacity. Never thought it would be this way. But I'm so glad that the strategies and the techniques and all those classes didn't go to waste. So really what I do, and what is important, especially for my law school students to focus on, is that they are a brand. And I know, Jolene, you know about this from the admission side because you help them get into a really good law school, but they really have to find ways to highlight their strengths and to find opportunities to develop themselves, develop their skill set, their passion. Like, for example, whether they're going into civil rights side of law or working with children or being an advocate for those that have disabilities, whatever I'll say a particular area in law that they want to focus on, it's all about putting that brand together. And so I help them to kind of highlight what they already are interested in. We don't reinvent the wheel. We start with what they're interested in, and then I simply play the connector. So if they tell me that they want to go into working on disability rights and being an advocate for that, then we connect them with organizations that have those opportunities. And I put it together in a list for them. Now, I have a DIY version. I actually have a guide for future law school students. So if they would like to go through the process themselves, they're more than welcome to. But of course, we know that they're busy. Probably working with you, Jolene, getting into school. And so if they don't have time, I actually go out and I do all the research and the connecting and pulling everything together, and we actually make custom scholarship lists.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I always felt like I was too busy to apply to
Mhm.
scholarships. If one kind of came across my desk or something, then that was
Right.
different. But just trying to find the ones I qualified for and
Mhm.
the ones that I might actually have a chance at. I mean, it always seemed like there's just no time to write all these essays or to fill out all these applications. And again, I just felt like my percent chance of getting it was so low. So
Mhm.
is there a way that you calculate how likely they are to get a certain scholarship?
Well, I don't know if it's so much a calculation, but I have seen over time, and we were talking beforehand, this is year number 11 almost in a few months. But what I have seen over time is that those students that focus on scholarships in their either local area or their region, they have a very, very high chance of winning those scholarships. And I guess it is math involved, right? Because everyone that's not in that community or region or that state, then they're automatically not eligible because it's a local scholarship. And also, I have seen really good success for law school students that they already kind of have an interest already. So, like I said, whether it's juvenile, domestic, whatever, if they want to be a prosecutor or whatever their interest is, focusing on those specific scholarship opportunities, they have a very good chance of winning those.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, there's just so many out there. And yeah, those big nationwide ones that are usually higher dollar value. That's what I've noticed is the nationwide ones seem to be higher dollar value. The more regional, local ones are smaller dollar value. Is that what you're seeing?
I am. And I tell students this, and we can go through, I have a process that I take them through. And really for law school, I tell them it's now, I'm not a lawyer, but I know that there are certain processes, Jolene, that you just have to follow just being in the field. And so I tell them that it's no different with this. But I tell them that seek out the opportunities that they have a greater chance of winning. So those local opportunities, the very specialty, I'll say, whatever their interest is in the field. And then take it to the national level. Now, like you said, the national scholarships tend to be larger, but I tell my law school students like this. I said, whether you win one $500, I'm sorry, whether you win a $2,000 scholarship or four $500 scholarships, they're both the same. So they may have to apply a little bit more, but those numbers do add up.
They can for sure. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, so if a student is taking some gap years, so they're not even in the application process, they know they're taking several years off, let's say 5 years, and they're maybe 1 year out of college. So there's nothing linking them to school. Is there a way to get a scholarship during that time frame?
Absolutely. And so there are certain scholarships for this will be for future law students. And these are, your typical legal, what is it, the legal societies, the different specialties within law. They, of course, as you know, Jolene, they want to support more lawyers coming to further the field. And so they actually have scholarships set up now. Some of them and the requirements may differ, right? So some of them may say that you have to at least have a letter of acceptance, so of course, that might not be a good fit for those that are already in the beginning, maybe of their gap years. But some of them simply say that you just must be able to demonstrate a strong interest. And
Okay,
so they can do that with, as you know, volunteering, leadership experience, and things like that.
that's great. Yeah, I
Mhm.
know a lot of people take gap years, and I think that in some ways it's almost like wasted time as far as scholarships goes because it feels like you don't qualify for anything until you actually get back to school. So that's good to know
Right.
there's some stuff out there.
Hmm.
Okay, what about students who are in college and they're looking towards law school, but they
Hmm.
have a low GPA, let's say like a 2.5. So they're definitely nowhere near that merit kind of stuff. What do you
Right.
recommend for them?
So for them, is I encourage them to focus on what they're passionate about, focus on their interest. And I actually have pulled up, and I'm sure, Joanna, you know about the lsac.org website. For those that are listening, that stands for the Law School Admission Council, and they have a great resource. Of scholarships, but also there are, and one of these I pulled up here. They have scholarships for those that are LGBTQ. I'm sorry, yes, LGBT Q. They also have scholarships for those that are different ethnicities. So I encourage those students, if you know you have a low GPA, focus on the other things around about you. And that goes back to that branding conversation. And I kind of share an example like this. You think about Apple, and we all know Apple products, the watches and the phones and everything, but it's the reason why a lot of people support and purchase Apple. And this is important for students, for you guys to think of as well, is it's called the KLT factor, I call it. We know those products, we've gotten to know them over time. We like them, they work, they're functional, whatever purpose, whatever the reason was, we like them, we're keeping them, and then we trust them over time. We've seen them continue to work, and so we're excited to buy the next product. So as you guys are going through this process of finding and applying for scholarships, you want to keep in mind that you want that scholarship committee to get to know you through your activities, like you through your essays and how you presenting yourself, and trust you enough to hand you over that money.
Wow. Okay, so when you talk about branding ourselves, how do
Mhm.
you recommend we go about doing that?
So this is a really good question, and I like this question. So for law school students, I like to start with, and I know it's the infamous question, Jolene. I know you help your students with this. It's why do you want to be a lawyer, or why do you, why do you want to get into this field? Was there a moment in your life that was significant enough, and it just kind of sparked that interest? Maybe you had a positive experience with the legal field. Maybe you had a negative experience. Maybe you experienced it through someone else, through a loved one, or through a relative or a friend. And so I take them there, whatever that the source of that passion is, then let's find ways to cultivate that. Let's start off locally. Now I know of course, you have to be mindful of social distancing and things like that, but maybe it's reaching out to a local law firm and assisting. Maybe it's reaching out to a law school and saying, "Hey, do you guys have any projects you're working on? Can I assist? Maybe you can't read files because they're confidential, but can I gather data for you guys?" Maybe it's reaching out. I love LinkedIn for this, but reaching out on LinkedIn and seeing if there are any events, any conferences coming up in your area. Start connecting with the people in your field or future field and getting started. It could just be starting off with maybe a blog or YouTube and you sharing your thoughts. If you're really passionate about gun rights or social justice or the different topics within law that interest you, start talking about it, start documenting. You can blog or even get on YouTube as well.
That's great. Yeah, I think that when we come out of college, we're not thinking of ourselves as a product necessarily, as a brand,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's hard to get started. It's almost like you almost need a course for it or something, some
You do.
guidance for sure. So it
Hmm.
sounds like that's what you do, which is great because I think we also forget what our natural talents or characteristics are. I mean, I think have all been made hyper aware of, our race or socioeconomic background. But beyond that, I think we forget what our little characteristics are, the things that make us us.
Yes.
So that's great to have some guidance on that. Now, okay, you said there's a DIY, so students can just buy like a packet to kind of start get that ball rolling. Is that what that is?
Yes. So what it is I'm kind of working on a series, but it's a scholarship guide, but it's specifically for law school students, and they can actually go to my website, which is scholarshipsuccessschool.com. I know it's long, but they can go there and get all those resources. But what I love about it, and what I'm encouraging future law school students to do, and this is kind of how the book is structured. There's a pre-phase, so pre-law. There's a during phase. And I'm talking about expenses, right? Once you've gotten into law school, you got textbooks and the different fees, right? Of course,
Yes.
tuition. And
Yes.
then there's a post, right? Because once you graduate, you still have to take the bar. You may have to travel to do your next phase before you get into a position. And so I encourage students is to be mindful not only of tuition, that's one major expense, but what are all the expenses you're incurring up front? When you're applying to take the LSAT and paying for study materials or a tutor. And fortunately, and this is also on the lsac.org, is there are some organizations like the Barbary Law Preview, they're giving scholarships that will cover the pre-phase. So not just being stuck on tuition, but being mindful that there are resources to cover the whole process.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah.
Are you aware of any scholarships for after they graduate from law school?
Not on the what you know what? Yes, I am. And it actually kind of ties it in. They're calling them fellowships. And I was gonna bring up, let's see if I can. I know it's on the LSAC because I took a look at it. Let's see. Okay, it's called the Harness and Dickey Diversity and Inclusion Fellowship. And so not only are they covering law school, but they're covering mentoring once a student graduates, kind of helping them get interviews, get into a place, giving funding for that. So yes, they usually are under the title fellowship, but I would encourage law students to check that out too.
Okay, wow. That's so great because I think that
Yeah.
we feel just so alone after we graduate with our debt,
Yes.
It's just we're just out
Yeah.
there in the world and they just dump us out there with, $300,000 or whatever it is that we
Right.
have and okay, good to know. Okay, so
Oh
on
yeah.
average, how long do you think it takes for a student to get a scholarship to start seeing money come in from, their efforts towards scholarships?
I can tell you on those. So when we were kind of first talking, the local scholarships and the very specific, I'll say niche or the specialty within law. I mean, seeing those as soon as so kind of back to the scholarship application cycle. It depends per organization, but I've seen students as soon as 2 to 3 weeks after the cycle has closed that they're getting emails and notices that they have won the scholarship. But with that being said, especially for my law school students, and I know they're busy with all the other things, but keeping in mind a few things. One, that it's not quantity of time, it's quality of time. So what I mean is, it's not that, oh my God, I only have 15 minutes. today, what am I going to do? But it's quality. What am I doing with that time? So am I going to take 5 of those minutes and do a quick search for local and then write them down the other 10 minutes? And then the next time I get a pocket of time, I can do the next step. Or is it that I've already looked and I have a list and maybe I'm checking out the first one? And so even if and you're listening, for those that are listening, it doesn't matter if you only have 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but just maximize the time that you have. And of course, we know, Jolene, working with students, it falls under time management. So it doesn't change. Even in law school, you have to manage
Yeah,
your time. So
for sure.
just keeping that in mind. And also this is that this is a numbers game. And so don't just apply for one or two. But if you know that so let's say you've worked with the amazing Jolene and you've gotten a package from the school, they're offering you so much money. If you have a little gap left, keep applying until you've covered that gap.
Yeah, I think when I look back, I was so concerned about getting work experience in undergrad and just making sure I, was bolstering my resume. And I just felt
Hmm.
like I had no time to apply for scholarships. And of course, I went home at 5 every day. So, I had time, but it just felt
Hmm.
like I had no time?
Yeah, it's a lot, and I think it's just, and this is why it's hard for me. Like I try not to make schedules or make recommended schedules because I know everyone is different. Like some law students have a family, they're taking care of someone and going to school. But
Yeah.
kind of just going back to my previous point is whatever pockets of time you have. If you got that 20 minutes, you're drinking coffee or something, drink coffee as you're looking down the list, right? But also, kind of to what you just said, Jolene, is like for the work experience, just find ways to incorporate that into your application so you're kind of killing two birds with one stone, so to speak.
Nice. So, okay. So if you take over, if they're not doing the DIY method, like how much
Yes.
time from the student is involved? How does that kind of work?
So the thing with the I say done for you, right? The DFY method, if students want that option, is the searching part is gone. So that time for them is eliminated because I then take over. I do have several team members now that I've trained. So we maintain a private database and we do ask up front. So I give the students like a questionnaire, your basic questions. Where'd you go to school for undergrad? What area of law do you want to go into? What's your ethnicity, any hobbies you're a part of, any leadership work experience. So once we create that profile, we then literally take that and we take it to our database and we just start pulling. So I guess it would take students maybe 10 minutes up front to fill out the questionnaire. And then within 48 hours, we are having a strategy meeting, giving them the list, and then going over, okay, you've got this work experience. Let's leverage it this way to increase your chances of winning. And we go down the list. And then once they have that, we then also provide a continuous follow up. So we have actually like a monthly program now, so they get that custom list, and then they then have access to myself and my team the whole month. So if they come across a question they can't answer on an application or they want feedback for an essay, then they have access to us all day, 24/7. And so we then provide support on the back end.
Wow, that's great. Now, I know you mentioned in the DIY method that there was a book. Is that the same book or a different book than the one that I saw on your website?
You may have seen the original one, but the law school, so it says the ultimate guide for finding and winning more money for college now, then it has a law school right underneath. So
Yeah.
that one is specific to law school, and that's kind of where I break down, make sure that they're covering all the cost. And also, I share some organizations to start connecting with in terms of finding money too.
That's great. Yeah, I know that organizations are a great place to go.
Yes.
The more you join networking organizations, whether it's your local chamber of commerce or whatever, there's always money to be found in those organizations. And a lot of times, because they are networking groups, if you put the shout out, hey, I'm looking for scholarships,
Mhm.
they might be able to tell you, oh, yeah, well, over here, we're doing a separate scholarship thing, not related to this group, but it's in this other group I belong to, or whatever it is. And so, yeah, those networking groups can be really, really helpful in multiple ways. So,
Absolutely. And I want to throw this in there for those that are listening and will watch is that this is an integrated process. So you need to work with Jolene up front because you do need that package from the schools. And that does depend on your LSAT score and your GPA if it's decent. Use those things to leverage to get more funding. And then once you have that package and you see the gap, then you can come on the back end with scholarships, and then you can kind of fill that gap in that way.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think that we look at the big numbers and we just
Mhm.
don't see, we don't see a gap, right? We just see big numbers. And so
Right.
we don't even think we can fill it. So I think
Mhm.
breaking it down like that, like, okay, here's the total bill, and then
Mhm.
here's how much I'm getting from the school, and here's how, much I'm saving in other ways, whatever it is. And then, okay,
Mhm.
so this is what I have left to do with scholarships. I think that just makes it more manageable.
Absolutely, I agree.
Now, is there law schools are every single school is so different. Some
Mhm.
have like a C plus curve, some have a B curve. So, a 2.5 at one school might be the equivalent of a 3.5 at another school. And it's just, they're really in the same place. They might be in the top, let's say, third of their class, but with totally different GPAs, which makes
Mhm.
scholarships, I think, a little difficult. Is there a way that you see around that to explain that?
I do. I tell students to be honest because I believe in being authentic. When there's no need to fabricate, and explain. But also, I encourage students to kind of turn it around on the positive. So maybe they had some growing up to do. Maybe they realized I don't know, they had to make a change and then kind of tie it to, as a future lawyer, I'm going to have to make adjustments. I'm going to maybe have some disappointments, but I'm going to navigate just like I'm doing now. So I always try to spin it to the positive and you don't want to be the victim because what I didn't share up front is I actually still judge scholarship competitions. I've been doing that the last few years. And you can spot those right away. The ones that, oh, I broke my leg. And so I got a 1.0 last semester but I need the money. So just give it to me. And it's like, okay, but I need you to spin it for me. So how does that information tie together for me so I can maybe try to justify awarding you with the money?
Yeah. It's really hard because we all do have different circumstances, whether it's
We
our
do.
school that has a low GPA for us, or whether, yes, we've had an accident. I know my GPA in undergrad went down the one quarter that I was in a car accident. So
Mm.
it's rough. You never know where you're going to end up. You never know what your situation is. But yeah, I think sharing it is important, letting them know, okay, we are a bigger person, a whole person. We have a plan. So.
Exactly. Exactly. And it ties back to their purpose too. So
Now, how long do people typically work with you for? Like, what's the general time frame?
So of course DIY, those are kind of like the go-getters. They kind of already have their plan, they got their number, they know what they need to do. And so they kind of, they purchase, they might reach out one time and they kind of move on. For those that work with me, it's usually around 3 to 4 months. Yeah, that's typical, about 3 to 4 months.
Okay. And I know you have a text program. What's that all about?
I do. So what I started doing is I realized, well, we're all busy, but when a text comes through, we're so quick to check our phones. And so I said, well, let me put together a list of law scholarships. And so, and I'll share that information, Jolene, with you. But my number it's 833-525-1093, and they just text law there, and it's going to send them a link. And as we were saying, is I have one list, but we are currently updating it, so we'll have a fresh list out very soon for the rest of the year. So if you're looking for scholarships, it's kind of a list to get you started. I believe right now it's about $50,000-$60,000 worth of scholarships on there, a little bit more. So just to kind of give you some encouragement to get started.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Text
Yeah,
programs are great because
love
that
it.
is definitely something we're always carrying around with us. And it's something I think we can better see and remember than our
Hmm.
email inbox. So
Right.
that's great. And I'll be sure, yeah, to link up your number and everything in the show notes so
Awesome.
it's easy access for everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So, is there any other overall advice that maybe I didn't touch on that pre law students, whether it's while they're in college or gap years or again, or law students should know about?
Yes, one thing I do want to touch on is and I've seen this with my other professional students too, but I think for a lot of law school students, they just don't know where to start and they need the support to get started the right way. And so if you're listening or watching, and if your first step is, oh, just jump into looking, I can tell you that you're going to be frustrated because it's almost like you're looking for something, but you don't know what you're looking for, and you won't know if you found it. It could be staring you right in the face, but because you don't know, you don't have a roadmap, you don't know how to get to that destination. So What I suggest is you have to start with you. And so that profile, now I can do it for you, or I can walk you through it on the DFY side, or you can do this yourself. And in the book, I literally walk you through step by step. But just simple things: your gender, ethnicity, what was your undergraduate college, what does your academics look like? Do you volunteer? Um, Leadership experience. Have you been documenting? Like, have you written essays? Maybe for your, I don't know, maybe at your college, maybe your pre-law group has a newspaper. Do you write for them? Or maybe you make a list of people. Are you connecting with? Like, do you know your pre-law advisor? Um, all those different things. Is make a list of that. And then when you're ready to start searching, which will be the next step, is only focus on things about you. That's how you make sure that the scholarships fit you, is because you're only looking like with this blinder, with this filter, right, of scholarships that are either they describe you or things that you do. So that would be the first thing. And I will say too, on the other end, I get a lot of law school students that are frustrated, right? Maybe they started looking and they kind of stopped and then they kind of got back to it. And I can tell you that we got to work on that too, because in between your inconsistencies are scholarship deadlines. And so that off week that you're not applying, somebody else is, and they're sending in their application. So consistency is the key. And then I'll end with this, is that if you've started to search and maybe you're not seeing the results right now, we've got to figure out what is the hole that we have to plug. So do you need to get more volunteer experience? Do you need to connect locally? Whatever it is, do you need to meet with your pre-law advisor, because they may have some resources? They actually have their own professional association just for pre-law advisors, so they're privy to some of this information. Tap into them. Whatever it is, have you given yourself enough time to work on your scholarship essays? Do you know how to recycle them? You shouldn't be writing a new essay for every application. You should be recycling.
I hope not.
So, right? So it's just trying to figure out what is the root cause and then plug in the hole. So those will be my top three pieces of advice.
Wow, those are fantastic. Yeah, I feel like it's actually doable. And you're
Mhm.
right. There's scholarships. I've seen deadlines every single month. So it's,
Yes,
you take that break and it's like you're missing some. So yes, slow and steady, people. Okay.
slow
All
and
right.
steady.
That sounds great. All right, Ashley, where can they find you if they want to start following you on social media, or just, yeah, again, your website, all that?
Absolutely. So I try to be everywhere. I try to be. We'll start with the website. So you can go to www.scholarshipsuccessschool.com. Got tons of resources over there. If you are an IG person, Instagram, you can check me out at Prep, FOUR College. Prep, FOUR College. I'm also over on LinkedIn. That's where a lot of our professionals hang out, and future professionals. So literally, you can look up Ashley Hill and I pop up right there. Also, I'm on Facebook, Prep, the number four, college. And then lastly, I'm on Twitter, which is Prep, FOR, college.
Gotcha. Okay, and I'll link that all
And
up
I'll
in the
send all
show.
that to you.
Yes, perfect. I'll link it all up for everybody so you guys don't have to memorize it. But that's great. But I think, yeah, the key here is get on that text program. Let's get some scholarships rolling in.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ashley. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Before we get into my top takeaways, a quick word from our sponsor, Juno. If you have to take out student loans, check in with Juno first. Juno can often offer law students 1% to 2% lower interest rates than the federal government, and with no origination fees and oftentimes cash back as well. Visit advisor.legallearningcenter.com/Juno for more information. My top takeaways from this chat with Ashley. Number one, create your own personal brand when you're looking at scholarships. Number two, you can increase your chances of success by looking locally. Number three, don't just jump into applying to scholarships. Create a profile first, a plan of attack. Number four, consistency is key. There are scholarships every month. That's it for this episode. All the tips and links will be in the show notes. A full transcript is available at legallearningcenter.com/Ashley. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review. That really helps the show to reach more people and it helps those people. Thanks.